Well, thank you very much, Chair. And in fact, why don't you respond, Mr. Corey, to Mr. Shear's point related to hedge funds and all that other opportunity for capital?
Of course. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair. Um, all of pools of capital, the member mentioned mutual funds and pension funds, all of it ultimately, of course, is the money of individuals, individual investors, people who invest in their pensions, who save money. Pension funds are no different. We have in some of the largest and most sophisticated pension funds in the world here in Canada, and they invest in infrastructure all over the world, and historically haven't done much of it in Canada. But whether that's the teachers here in Ontario, CPP, AIMCO out west, these are large pension funds. They represent, yes, absolutely, private pools of capital, and they are investing that money on behalf of their members, just like a hedge fund is investing money eventually on the behalf of individual investors. So absolutely, just to the foundational, like definitional question, to us, those are pools of private capital. Second, I would mention a third example that didn't get cited, but we talked about our Oneida battery storage project. It's a different one. And I mentioned only to say 3 different projects with 3 different kinds of non-government capital. And I just want to stress the words non-government capital. An Oneida battery, it's actually a private entrepreneurial company called Enerstore. They have shareholder, a private company with owners. They're investing their equity. They're also partnered with First Nations developers from other pools of capital, pension funds, etc. So that's a third project. All 3 of those, in our mind, do meet the test, as John said. Those are different forms of non-government money. They're not getting paid for from grants or subsidies. They're getting paid for instead by other pools of capital, and those pools of capital are getting paid back by the revenues of the project, and that's critical. It's not getting paid back by taxpayers, whether that's the savings from converting diesel buses to electric or the energy in the Oneida battery storage project. The idea is we'll be able to sell that power to the grid, displace gas, and instead take the renewable energy. That project's in Ontario, so it's going to take renewable energy when it gets created, stored in batteries, and then sell it back to the grid. That's what's going to pay back those investors. That's what's going to pay back the CIB as well.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. Perhaps I can get to what I would really like to ask about, and it does relate in essence to the definition of private and privatization. We had a number of witnesses here before the committee, and I think their greatest fear was that in some way the CIB was mandating privatization of the asset. In other words, once the investment has been made, there is a public asset. Again, you mentioned this in your opening statement, but could you just clarify for us, is there any mandate of the CIB to allow this infrastructure investment to become privately owned?
Mr. Corey?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an important question. It is often a source of confusion. Crystal clear. We have no mandate whatsoever to privatize public assets, and we work with the owners of those assets to deliver. And we're actually, the goal of engaging private capital is to do 2 things. It's to grow the pie of money we have to pay for these projects, because we all have to admit there's a limit to what we can do from purely tax-based traditional grant funding. So we're trying to grow that pie. Number 2, we're trying to grow that pie in ways that creates good alignment of incentives, so that if you have a private sector partner, they have every incentive in the world to build it well, run it well over the long term. And of course, I had the privilege of working with the member. I was previously at Infrastructure Ontario in Ontario, and the Ontario program is a good example of this. Hospitals, colleges and universities, courts, a whole bunch of public infrastructure has been built using some form of P3, and without any privatization of any of those assets or the services delivered in them. And that's just now, as the CIB, to step back, we're very agnostic to the type of project. We can work in the context of the Ontario style P3. We can work with other public sector owners. We work with municipalities directly. So we have no mandate, let alone to privatize. We also have no edict or mandate that it must be a P3 or not. That's not even in our consideration set. For us, it's all about revenue generating assets, draw in private capital to take on some of the risk in that, and to provide some of the upfront capital, get more built that way.